Hi everyone, my name is Zach and welcome to On Cashflow, where I help you become a master of your own cash flow. Now let's get started. So here's the short answer on how Vanguard kind of screwed some investors over. They took their target date retirement funds and they lowered it to $5 million. And what that did was that caused a lot of companies, people with like lots of money in their retirement plans, like maybe like their 401k plans, it caused them to move from the regular one over to the institutional fund because they didn't have $10 million before maybe, but they had more than $5 million. And so they moved that money over so that they could get a slightly lower expense ratio. You know, I would do the same. What that did was that caused a lot of capital gains to the other target date retirement fund. And that's a really bad thing because with mutual funds, when there are capital gains, those get distributed to everyone that is holding that mutual fund. So this mutual fund has this kind of leakage, as they call it, when it comes to tax inefficiency. And that is true if it is located within a regular taxable investment account. That is kind of the good-ish news here. You were only really affected by this if you had a target date retirement fund by Vanguard, like this particular one, in your regular taxable brokerage account. If you had it in a regular retirement account, like an IRA or a 401k, it doesn't matter because the account is tax advantaged. But if you held it in a regular taxable brokerage account, then you're going to see a ton of capital gains. And that was at the end of 2021. This is a problem not only with Vanguard target date retirement funds, but also it could be with mutual funds in general. They have such a tax inefficiency that could end up being bad in this case. Now, it's rare for this to happen, something like this bad, but there is that little bit of leakage when it comes to capital gains that get passed on to everyone within that mutual fund. So as a general rule, now I don't hold mutual funds. I try not to hold mutual funds in my regular taxable brokerage account. Instead, I opt to use exchange traded funds or ETFs. More on that later. But do you know what's not going to affect you in a bad way, but actually it's probably going to affect you in a good way, is liking this video. So hit the like button on this video if you're enjoying it so far. We got a little bit more good stuff to talk about here. If you do hit the like button on this video, that means that YouTube is probably going to recommend more of my videos to you. And trust me, you probably do want to watch more of my videos. So please hit that like button. It will really help me out, and hopefully it's going to help you out as well. But getting back to the good stuff here, the reason why this is so bad is that if you are a simple index fund investor, then you probably want to have very little amounts of funds, and you probably want to have pretty much the same thing in all of your accounts just to keep things simple. So a lot of people probably had this target date retirement fund, not only in their IRA, but in their 401k and possibly their taxable brokerage account as well. So if they had this in their taxable brokerage account, they kind of got screwed with a ton of capital gains. There's actually another follow-up video to this made by Mr. Rob Berger, where he talks about there's a kind of like a class action lawsuit against Vanguard based on the actions that they took, because this was completely avoidable. They didn't have to cause this max exodus out of their target date fund into the institutional target date fund. There were other ways that they could have handled this to where they didn't kind of screw over all these small term investors, where that caused them to realize all kinds of capital gains where they'd have to pay a bunch of different taxes possibly. But overall, I do take this as a learning experience. There are some things that you can do to try to protect yourself from something like this happening to you. Hopefully it didn't happen to you, but if it did happen to you, I want to know from you in the comments below. Also, I do want to know from you in the comments below if you actually invest in any target date retirement funds, or even if you have any mutual funds that are in your taxable brokerage account. Let me know in the comments below. Let's talk about it. But here's what you can do in order to maybe try to prevent this from happening to you. First off, I think that in general, what I've learned from this is that do not hold mutual funds in your taxable brokerage account. They could have tax consequences to you even if you don't do anything. Even if you don't sell anything, mutual funds can pass on all kinds of tax consequences to you. But with index funds, this is one that we never really thought could happen, but it did happen, and it could happen to any other kind of mutual fund as well. I think that one thing that we can do to prevent this in our own portfolio is to try to get only exchange traded funds to be in our taxable brokerage accounts. This is what I actually did last year. So I was actually switching from Fidelity Investments to M1 Finance, and M1 Finance only has exchange traded funds. They don't have mutual funds currently. So what I did was I actually did capital gain harvesting, where I harvested the gains from my mutual funds at Fidelity in my regular taxable brokerage account. But I harvested them at 0% because I retired that year and I had a lower income, and therefore I could realize a lot of capital gains at 0% because long-term capital gains can be realized at 0% at certain income levels. But once I did that, I went ahead and I rolled them over into M1 Finance and I bought the equivalent exchange traded funds, some Vanguard exchange traded funds. And now I have a much more tax efficient portfolio. Okay, I am not really at risk because exchange traded funds have more tax efficiency in a taxable account than do mutual funds. And so I would try to see if you can do something similar, especially going forward. If you are investing in mutual funds in your taxable brokerage account, I would choose to opt for the ETF equivalent. And if you can realize gains at 0%, then I would switch over to ETFs as well. I wouldn't intentionally realize, 15% or 20% long-term capital gains just so I could switch from mutual funds to ETFs. So hold off as long as possible. But going forward, I think that ETFs in a taxable brokerage account is one of the best solutions that we have available. Otherwise, if we're talking about mutual funds, especially index mutual funds, they're still really great investments to hold in your IRAs. They're still great investments to hold in your HSAs and your 401k at work, okay? So no problem there. This is only specific to taxable brokerage accounts. And now if you're really interested in learning more about this whole Vanguard debacle when it comes to their target date retirement funds, I highly suggest you watch the video by Rob Berger that introduced me to this problem. I'm gonna put it in a link in the description below, a link in the comment below as well. So check out that video if you're interested in learning more about this. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm Zach from OnCashflow.com, and I hope to see you next time.